Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Words with Dawn Thomson. Today, I have a lovely guest that I've known for a really long time, and she is the lovely Emily Phillips. So, she holds spaces and curates spaces for women leaders, and she does it in a really, really interesting way. And when we were talking about how she goes about this and the way she does it, she said it was like she holds their becoming, which I think is a beautiful phrase. So, hi, Emily. Thanks for coming on and having a chat with us today. Could you tell us a little bit about what holding their becoming means to you?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with you and spend time with you. I think my take on people's becoming is I'm not really doing the holding. What's actually happening is that people are brave enough to look at who they really are inside and to give space and time and compassion to that process of discovering more of themselves. So really it's a kind of self-empowerment process that's happening. You know, we're constantly in change, whether we like to acknowledge it or not, and in lots of different ways and on lots of different levels. And some people are more accustomed to or wanting to be in that space of change. And for me and for the women I work with, you know, female leaders, it is a constant, is that there is change happening internally. So what my passion and my love is to be with these amazing women who care about creating in the world and to really walk alongside them and to curate space that feels safe, that feels enjoyable, that feels kind, that is celebratory, that holds that space for difference and for potential conflict and, you know, the juice of what it means when we come together.
And I like the fact that it's using the word becoming because quite often when you go into little groups like this, there's usually a kind of goal or an achievement, and it's like, come and do this work, and we're going to make sure that you get X or Y. But actually, it seems to me the goal is actually just the process itself.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I feel the most interested in. And that's where I feel like my gifts shine alongside others. And there's something really alive about it. You know, when we dare to be in the present with what's actually happening, then we can help to guide it, we can help shape it, we can help create it. It's making it more conscious. So yeah, I've always been really drawn to that process of being in a process creatively. And I think that that's where in a way, the closest to truth we can get to, because it's happening in the moment, in the now. And the more that we can love that and hold that and care for that, the more that can help us to become and to blossom into more of what we want.
That just sounds amazing. And most of the women that you work with, are they creative? Because you've mentioned the word creativity a couple of times. So do they tend to be in the creative sphere?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're women who are very tuned in, run deeply, have deep inner worlds. I would say they are creative, definitely. They've got lots of gifts and skills, and they pull from those different threads in order to integrate them to understand more of who they are and how they can then imaginatively use that within their businesses, within their relationships, within their own expression. Yeah.
That just sounds so good. And so you're a creative yourself.
Yes.
Yes. I'm doing loads of closed questions today. Is that
I
yes,
love
that's
it.
it. Yeah.
Yes,
No,
indeed.
yeah, no, well, the closed questions are going to stop now because I was just, gosh, it just reminds me of like Terry Wogan and closed questions and all that. Stop that now. Um, Tell me, or tell everyone who's listening about your creativity. Then, how do you create in the world?
So we'll start with the past. My background was I was an opera singer and did a lot on stage and in theatre and performing and singing, and that was a huge part of, yeah, of who I am and who I was and how I was sharing my voice.
Mhm.
Now I think it's become more around this sphere of kind of feminine embodiment, and that incorporates so many different threads for me. So, from movement practices to dance to sounding practices to, I love to kind of make things like with my hands and kind of art, journaling, things like that. That's a really enjoyable process for me to understand myself more fully, and then also to kind of form creativity as it's coming through me to give it shape.
Yeah.
And I think probably the two big spaces of creativity for me are within partnership, within my relationships, and then also within my business. And so, yeah, I like to weave those threads of kind of music and the voice, and helping people to find their own voice within that. And then also, yeah, I suppose it is a creative practice to be in the present, to learn how to be with oneself. That's a never ending, not always
That's kind of the
easy.
hardest. That can be the
Yeah.
most challenging,
Yeah.
up as works in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having to, and something, a word that really rang out for me when you were talking there was compassionately, doing it compassionately as opposed to, why are you like this? Get on with it.
100%. It won't go anywhere. If we use that sense of force, it's really difficult. I think it was you, in fact, that said at one point, we were on a call and we were talking about something, and you said about how when you plant a seed and you're like, you can't then say to the seed, grow, just grow. Come on, it's like yanking, poking.
Hurry up, hurry up. And it's true. And with the ultimate creative process, like giving birth, when I did my hypnobirthing, I would say, oh, my kid's late. It's like, is it? Is it late? Yes, it should have been due on the 19th of September and it's not here yet. And it's like, the baby might have and this whole, well, you're due on the 19th, come on, get open and come out the sunroof because we've got a schedule. It's not the same as letting it blossom
Yeah.
and just taking its own time. We've got such a set structure of what time should be. Just, was
Yeah.
the takeaway though, Emily? I kind of see that because I haven't even asked you about what word you brought with you, and I'm really excited to see what word is alive for you today in this moment, because you've got, as you say, all these threads and all these different ways that you can weave things together. So yeah, hit me with it. What's the word for you today?
Yeah, the word is environment.
Ooh,
And it was just so rich when the invitation to come and have this chat with you came through really quickly, intuitively. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting word. Okay, I'll play with it, and I'll walk around the world with it, and I'll create with it and see what it's saying to me, see what I'm saying to it. And I think there's a richness because, of course, we've got our own inner environment. We're walking around with our kind of emotional landscape, with our psychological, thoughts and kind of ways of being and our personality. And, then there's this sense of kind of, I'm thinking I'm mapping through the body, and then there's this kind of being in the heart space as well, that kind of inner connection of what's here for me, and how can I come back into that space of compassion with myself. And then the idea of outer environment is kind of, how are we then relating ourselves to bigger environments? So how are we within community? How are we in our friendships? What's important to us in that? And that touches on, the theme of belonging. Where do we belong, and how do we belong more in ourselves? How do we inhabit more of our body, more of our sensuality, more of our purpose, and how do we let that express and come through? And I've been thinking quite a lot about, in the past, this has been part of my own journey, about how I've wanted to be in certain environments, but I haven't allowed myself to receive that. And I realized there was some kind of, I think maybe nervousness or uncertainty in my heart of, what if I really let myself receive this? What if I was really with people where I felt that sense of relief, where I felt that sense of being met, where I felt
And
that
so
sense of reciprocity.
that's really interesting because, you're saying that you didn't allow the environment to be received. Whereas a lot of people would say, well, the environment shut me out. And they'd make it the environment's responsibility or fault, if you know what I mean, rather than you're actually being more proactive and making it more of a personal thing about receiving it. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is that we are responsible for what we're creating around us. So, this inner and outer conversation about environment is that when the environment internally is feeling connected to, what we want, the external then shows us that it's a match. So,
Uh,
energetically, there's a sense of alignment.
mm,
And I think this is part of the journey, that I'm describing a part of my own kind of um, maybe sensitivity or uncertainty or mistrust, these younger parts of self where I was sort of unconsciously holding myself away from what I actually really enjoy and what I really adore. And, there's always a mixture showing up. There are, of course, environments where I'm feeling like I can just let go and I can be myself and I can see that match, but there's always new levels, I think.
and so, what held you back from the places that you really? We're probably going back in time a bit here, but I think it's quite interesting to explore that. What held you back from the places that you really, really adored and really wanted to go into? What was going on for you that made you shut that down and not receive it?
Yeah, I think it was around being highly sensitive, and this is also what I see in the leaders that I work with as well.
Yeah.
So, not feeling understood, feeling like a bit different, like you can kind of read the room, you can pick up and sense and understand and know all this information. I think it was about a journey of maturation, I think, of it's okay to have desire. It's okay for that desire to be met. I think, yeah, I think there's also elements of visibility, which is also what shows up, within my business, within the businesses that people are working within, the clients that I work with as well. It's a really big journey. And it's a really big journey to allow ourselves to have that honesty of getting to know what is it that we want, what is it that we need.
Yeah.
And it does require a lot of patience, I think. And gradually we start to see, I work really incrementally. That's felt really important, that particularly for nervous system kind of calibration, that part of allowing people's becoming is that it's a gradual process. It's never about forcing.
Yeah.
And the more that we do that, the more that these areas of life around visibility, around feeling understood, around feeling like you understand yourself better, feeling like you can express yourself more fully or communicate yourself where you're actually received and receiving yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I think obviously I'm a, a single kind of entity in my business, and it's really difficult, particularly when you're a woman, I think, to be that leader and pioneer. And it feels exceptionally lonely at times. And it does make you feel, particularly if you're not doing what other people do, because there's no proven track, there's no path to follow. I kind of see it as a kind of the metaphor of, I'm I'm scything away all this long grass, going, yes, this is the way, but it's like long grass, and and it's how does that, how do you allow yourself to be that unconventional pioneer so that you can see beyond all the long grass, which is just all the, oh, he should be like this, oh, he shouldn't be like that, isn't it? It's all that's just all the mind egoic stuff giving you jib.
Yeah, and society and culture and layers of patriarchy and the list
All
goes
of
on.
that, all of that, no, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. But, this is where intuition steps in my opinion. And this is not just with female leaders. This is, men are highly intuitive as well. And I think that's really important to acknowledge that
Yeah.
that can sometimes be, pushed aside, or society says, women are these sensual beings and they're the intuitive ones. And,
Mm.
men really are that as well and are very
Right.
sensitive. Yeah, and there's something about what you're saying, we're in the dark when we're creating, sort of, it's, we are essentially being visionary leaders in terms of creating things that have potentially not been created before, or tweaking
Yeah.
things that have been created but adding a new flavor to them that feels a bit more healthy or more needed in the world, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I think probably we're in this blend, coming back to this creative conversation, where intuition is really important as a part of our expression, or a skill perhaps to develop alongside our more logical intellect. And it's a constant dialogue and letting go of old belief systems of what we thought we knew,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and then listening to what actually feels right in our body, in our heart, in our knowing, wherever we're sort of receiving and understanding that from.
For
Yeah.
sure. And that whole thing about the, creativity being, in a dark place, like with the, with all the, all the scything the thingies away, the leaves away and the grasses and stuff. But it's true. And it takes me back to that feeling of, most creative environments are dark. So, like used to have a dark room back in the day, in my day, when, used to make photographs with like proper, stinky chemicals, which probably wasn't good for you. But, and it developed in the dark. And, babies are created apparently in the dark when the womb is dark. And, and I kind of feel like that darkness, not knowing environment, it's not knowing, it's just that it's like you say, like you create these environments to let that just become a beautiful thing. And yeah, and it's staying true, I guess, to that feeling of your environment is the right environment for whatever is happening, as opposed to going, oh, what's your environment like? Oh, Bob, what's your environment like? Oh, maybe I should make it more like that, because it's just not going to be, is it? It's just not, it has to be your own environment that things grow in, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think, perhaps part of the shadow is what you're talking about, around that we look outside of ourselves to try and understand things. And of course, we're in a learning process, so we're compassionate with this
Mm.
process, and we're doing it all the time. We're learning from
Mm.
others and we're witnessing. But I think the bravest thing to do is to sit with our own environment, and to learn somehow that whilst we're doing that, that we're actually not alone in that process, even though at times it can feel lonely, like what you talked about, even though at times it can feel like we're not quite sure what we're doing, and we're sort of developing that skill and learning. Um, yeah,
And if we're not alone, who's with us, Emily?
yeah, great question.
I'm here for it. I'm here for this question. Because
What a big question, yeah.
it's a big question. Yeah, come
Mm.
back in a couple of weeks while
Yeah,
we've thought about this question. Like, who's
yeah,
with
I
us
agree.
if we're not alone? Because it's that thing that and I'll share. Having been, I can't believe I've been self-employed for half my actual life. So I really feel like and I feel like you said, not like other people. And it's taken me till my 50s to go, do you know what? That's all right. Sort of going, oh no, should be more like this, or I should be acting more like. And it has felt and really, really lonely at times, because you just think, does anyone get me? Or you meet people, like yourself, that do, but they seem to be kind of sometimes few and far between. But in those moments of creativity, and in those moments of where it's when it's dark and things are just developing, we're not alone, who's what do we pull on? What are we drawing on? What's making us feel not alone, do you think, in your opinion? I mean, there's no right or wrong to this, everyone, by the way. So everyone's looking at Emily like, what is the
Yeah,
answer?
what's the answer
Give me
exactly?
the answer now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you think then makes it a less, or can make it a less lonely place for people who are maybe experiencing what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question. And I think the medicine for me is community. And I think it's a conversation between being with oneself and having the courage to be honest and sit with oneself in
Mm,
ways where you're doing it that's enjoyable, and you're creating environments, mini environments, whether that's ritual, whether it's with a cup of tea, whether it's going for a walk. You're creating ways in which you're getting to know yourself. And then I think it's about finding aligned spaces where people are talking the same language as you, or not necessarily the same as you, but that there's enough shared values in terms of you feel met, you feel seen, you feel understood, you feel held, you feel loved for being exactly who you are.
mm,
And I think that is a process of discovery, and it changes as well. You know, sometimes we're part of spaces or environments or communities or groups, and then we evolve, and then our spaces evolve as well. So yeah, I think it's in a simplified form. It's twofold, that it is about having, you know, the emotional support around that you need, and the people, and the lifestyle choices, and the things that bring you joy. And it requires a huge amount of courage. And I think again that is also a muscle. And to
mm,
have spaces where that muscle of courage is developed, for me, is invaluable. And that's why I created some of the things I've created,
mm.
for that reason, because it could feel really lonely when we're, you know, intuiting and learning. And yeah, I don't know,
And then there's
some,
no one to check against sometimes. You've got a great
no.
idea, and you're a bit like, it feels too great almost. And I think that's a lot of the problem is that
Mm,
when you're doing something by yourself, when you hit on a really brilliant idea, you know, the tendency is to go, oh, well, that's brilliant. So it can't, I've thought of it. That can't be right. Do you know what I mean? And it's having the community to give you that sense check, I think is invaluable, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. I think it's a necessity. I think that is the future of what's needed more and more, essentially. And we're in a funny sort of dichotomy with it, aren't we, where there's more and more people who are becoming kind of self-employed and creating their own
Mm-hmm.
businesses alone, and we feel, in a sense, as a humanity, more disconnected than ever to some degree. But then at the same time, there is this capacity to open doors and create spaces to develop, you know, what it is that we care about, what it is that we value, what it is that we want to be doing more of, and sharing more of, and how do we want to be, you know, helping others, or providing, or contributing in some way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it kind of makes brings to mind for me this whole feeling of, you know, to talk politics a bit, this banding together that's not helpful.
Mm.
And people see that they feel like they're being a community, but they're not a real, true community because it's not about holding people with the compassion that you're talking about. And that's why it feels to me that what's happening now is kind of like mob culture and not true community. And it's almost, how do you think that we can get beyond this kind of individualism where what I say is absolutely right? And actually, all these people are yapping on about it, and then they kind of band together in this echo chamber. How have you got any idea, based on what you feel, on how we can move beyond that to a real sense of community and an environment that people can thrive in?
I think it's a really big question, and I think
Come back in heart
come
and come
back.
back 6 weeks when Emily has thought this answer.
And I actually
Sorry,
think,
Emily, dropping it
no,
on.
no, it's, I actually think it's not a thought thing. I think it's an emergence that's happening.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And I think that it's almost like the way that when I sort of tune in and, meditate and sit with my intuition, what I'm shown is that we are kind of gathering together as humans to create that together. So we've had lots of versions of community and past understandings of what that looks like, and difficult versions of that, and ways that that's gone wrong, and ways that also that has been really supportive in Indigenous cultures. And there are lots of different versions of what that could be. And I think this will be very individual to the person in terms of what they want, what they need, what they're looking for, and we'll all be at different stages with this. But again, this feeds into for me, to this question of environment. If we're in a shared environment where we're wanting to create a culture together of something, of some kind, for me, it's often led by peace. Does this environment nurture peace for me? If I do this, will this help me to develop more peace? And, sometimes we don't know the answer, and it may not, and it's okay. We're always making mistakes all the time. But it's about holding that sense of compassion of, oh, okay, something's emerging here. If I stay true to myself and I hold that lightly whilst I'm changing through that process, eventually more and more people land together in a shared sort of sense of understanding. And it's a sort of soft idea around what community could look like, where we're kind of still an individual but within a shared purpose.
I totally get that. Totally agree with that. And yes, I totally subscribe to that, because we have to be ourselves and we have to know what our values are. We have to know what's important to us. And we have to speak it, but we don't have to shout it that loudly. We just have to be it and embody it. And then people on our frequency will get it, and we'll find. And so our environment and our community is kind of almost found for us by what we're resonating at, I think. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's what I feel as well. I feel a bit like coming back to the beginning of what we were talking about around the inner and the outer, that they start to meet. And for me, that's the space where there is no separation. It's quite a nebulous it's quite a spiritual thought, in terms of what is this and how are we creating this. But it's kind of where there is a sense of, some would call it merging, others would call it like oneness, or there's a togetherness somehow, where we're still who we are, but there is that shared sense of purpose.
Yep, yep. And I guess what we need to do is we all need to feel grounded enough, I suppose, to be able to take on the higher aspects of it and embody the higher aspects rather than the baser, the fear and the guilt and the shame and blah, blah. We need to be able to hold those, but be kind, compassion, as you keep saying, and this gentleness. I'm loving this conversation because it's just, and you are such a gentle being, but you are badass as well. But it's people she really is. She just doesn't look like it. She just looks really sweet. But it's so lovely that these are really soft words, nebulous, and gentle, and compassion. But these are all things that have their own force and their own strength.
That's what I was going to say. The word backbone was what was coming through. It's like,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the surface, yes, there can be this gentleness and this compassion, but it requires this sense of holding and, yeah, and backbone and sort of inner fire. What's the flame inside of this that's able to kind of allow us to go into this. This is the deep work. This is why I love this space of feminine, female leadership, and not just female, but this is who I work with. But leadership in general is this willingness to, to embody more of ourselves, more of our true selves. And that is a process we're really in. And I think we're becoming, more conscious as humans. We're recognizing that we're souls having a human experience. If you
Yes.
subscribe to that, if you believe that. And And these are big sort of openings for how we are learning to understand who we are. And it does require a lot of strength and a lot of yeah, life design is the word that I'm really curious about at the moment. Designing your own life
Yeah.
around you so that it really supports you and it gives you that kind of protection and strength,
Conscious,
desire.
consciously doing it because,
Yeah.
as you know, we are doing it all the time, but unconsciously and from a place of reaction rather
Yeah.
than actually responding and looking. And you had said just, a few minutes ago, it's that whole thing about, we make mistakes, whatever, and we change it. But actually, the mistakes are just feedback. They're just like, okay, that wasn't quite right. And if we can look at it in a kind and gentle, compassionate way, we can see it as just feedback as opposed to, why have you done that? Oh, don't do that anymore. And it enables us to curate a life for ourselves that we do want. Um, and so, do you think then, Emily, in your work, that this is the environment that you've created for people to plant their seeds into and create their own little environments within that? Do you know what I mean? What's the environment you've created for people and for yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, I think
Everybody come back into
yeah.
me.
There's such big questions.
We haven't had enough wine or even tea or anything for you. They're just coming up, they're just bubbling up. I apologize.
No, I love it. Yeah. There's a few different things that are bubbling for me when you say it, which is the first is this thread of it's actually a thread of forgiveness when you were talking about mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
This because mistakes aren't mistakes, as you say. It's it's a sort of maturation process of learning, yeah, of learning essentially. And once we're able to hold ourselves and look at ourselves in that sense and offer that sense of forgiveness, I think that's when we're able to sort of move on and to expand into more of ourselves essentially. And I think that is part of the embodiment of the spaces that I am curating and creating for people, is that I believe that that is the way that we're supposed to treat ourselves. I think, we're constantly juggling this understanding of we are made up of light and of shadow. And that's where the backbone requires this sense of gentleness with oneself in looking at these places and these corners. And I'm sure that that's what you're doing all the time as well in your therapeutic work and with your clients, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because, it's that thing about, you know, to paraphrase Nelson Mandela, he said something, didn't he? He's either winning, he wins either way. He either wins, if he wins, he wins. And if he loses, he wins because he's learned from the loss and he's not taking it as a personal thing. And I will always say to my clients, your shadow self is actually to me, it's where you've just suppressed and suppressed and suppressed it so much, it becomes a bit like oil. It's a bit like black gold. It's like actually there's some really rich, interesting stuff in there if you'll only just take all the rocks off it. And you'll see that there's so much you can work with. And it's just a reframe. There might be something in there that you think, oh, I'm not really good at that. But actually, if you reframed it in a different way, you might need that orneriness or stubbornness or whatever you want to call it. It might actually be the thing that actually keeps you going in the hard times if you reframe it, or you know what I mean, and if you're kind. And I really liked what you said about forgiveness, because I mean that's huge, massive. Because if you can't forgive yourself, you're keeping yourself in the place at which you couldn't forgive yourself. So if you couldn't forgive you something you did when you were 9, there's just a big bit of you still stuck at the age of 9, even if you're 49. And if the forgiveness enables you to become, I think, another word that you used before, become something different and become something, like you said, more mature.
And for me, I find that to be a creative process. If we can
Sure.
find ways to kind of rechannel the stuckness or what was slightly frozen inside of us or what was a memory that couldn't move on, if we can
Mm.
find an outlet for that somehow, yeah, that's where we can become more of ourselves. That is the healing, that is the repurposing almost of the inner material of who we are and who we are becoming, outside of that, and the bravery to grow beyond that as well.
And did you feel that your singing back in the day, did that help you through hard times, or did that help you become was it performative, or was it something that felt very much like it was an expression of you, that you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mixture of all of it, I think.
Yeah.
I I definitely used it as a tool for expression, that was for sure. It was a way for me to communicate my essence. And it was a natural expression of who I was right from when I was young. And so for me, there was an element of kind of processing, I think, through non-verbal communication, you know, that I really connected to sound and to music and to vibration and frequency. And there was a very kind of pure connection I had with it in that form. Then when I took it to theatre, there was a much more performative element to it, and perhaps a more in the realm of embodiment, in the realm of kind of shadow embodiment, even exploring the clown and the bouffon and the ugliness of, you know, our inner world, and difficult material, and how we can, yeah, externalize that somehow, so it's not part of us sort of stagnating or
Yeah.
rotting inside of us.
Yeah.
And also, it was quite interesting for archetypal work as well. Yeah, exploring kind of feminine archetypes and characters and roles and things like that, which for me was a process of actually kind of letting go of all of that, and refining away from, you know, projections, what other people thought about me, how other people wanted to cast me, you know, what did I really feel inside of that. So yeah, and then it gradually moved into, I was using it for healing. I just was finding myself wanting to tone and to sound and to connect these parts of myself I couldn't understand, and my emotions. And I started to do it with clients and realized actually this is a really gentle somatic process if it's, you know, curated for the person and is really listening to that person's needs. So it's been a whole plethora of things for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
But all of it sounds really, really positive. It all sounds that it what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think also, you know, there've been negative sides of it when it's felt really difficult to communicate myself, or really difficult to kind of corroborate all these parts of myself, particularly in business. I think this is a theme that comes up for myself, for other people, you know, consistently, of how do we describe what we do when we know what we do, because we're just being who we are, right? We talk about this quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's like
And it's too big.
I'm just gonna be who I am, and then it's like, oh, I've forgotten how to do that. And then it's a whole process of remembering, oh, I remember I'm this, and I remember I've got this skill, and I remember I can talk about it, and I remember I can share it. So yeah, there have been really difficult parts with it as well, you know,
Mm.
where it's felt very trapped, or I haven't been able to share that. But yeah, gradually I think I've put more emphasis on letting that be a joyful process, rather than one of like deep healing, which it was for a long time. And, you know,
Yeah.
that was part of a journey. But for now, it's about how can I understand myself better? How can I be of service to others? How can I, yeah, feel a sense of radiance through sharing more of myself, and curating and creating these spaces so that others can do the same.
Oh gosh. Sounds absolutely amazing. And in fact, it's leading me to a question that I haven't asked any of my guests before, but here you go.
Here we
Um,
go.
no, well, I've just done a little bit of writing about it because it's come up in the last week. I don't know if you find this, but with your clients and with people you just generally talk to, the same subject quite often comes up, and you're a bit like, okay, what am I needing to know about this? You know, why is this coming up so much? And what has come up for me a few times has been, what's your personal church? What's your personal heaven, where the place that you go and you can just be and expand and then come back and go, do you know what? Yeah, everything's cool. I can do it. What's that for you?
Oh, it's a beautiful question. It's very divine.
Mm. Like myself, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm the angel that is doing.
Yes, that's on the angel. I think there are a number of things that are coming to me, but I think
Mhm.
the piece that feels that it incorporates the alchemy of this whole thing is dance. It's anything where I'm moving my body in a way that is not performative, that is sensual, is kind, is listening. It provides a sense of relief. And dance has got this wide spectrum again of how you use it. It can bring this, wild sort of abandon and rage and everything. And it can also be stillness and nothing and just, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's got the whole
Right.
universe inside of it. So yeah, that
Oh.
that provides me with a sense of relief, I think.
And do you know what, Emily Phillips? Mine is exactly the same.
No, we
It's
didn't talk about this,
exactly
everyone.
honestly, everybody listening, I
Wow.
want you to think about what your personal heaven is. So for me, it's in the club. It can be in the kitchen, but you know what I mean? When they're in the
Yeah.
club and there's people around me, and then the beat drops, and I'm just like, boom, I'm just there. And I just, yeah, and everyone's throwing mad different shapes. That's the thing, everyone's doing their own dance moves.
Yeah.
We're not the Tiller girls when I think show my age, but we're not, everyone's doing their own thing. And the music, yeah, any music. And it reminds me of my daughter when she was about 4. We went to a friend's wedding and she was shattered. And she'd been on the dance floor and she'd been wearing her little cute dress and she was very sweet and everything. And then she went, Mummy, I'm really tired. And I was like, do you want to go to bed? She was like, yeah. And then the beat would drop. She'd be like, oh no. And she'd be giving it all the. And then it would finish. And then she'd be like, I'm so tired. And I'm like, let's go to bed now. And then the beat would drop again. And and she did that about 4 times. So after about the fourth not dance, I was like, babe, you know what? It is like 12 o'clock at night. You need to get to bed. She was like, "No." But it was like she couldn't not. And it just took her to a place like you say, that encompasses or touches on all these elements of you, doesn't it? And you just feel, I know I'm moving my body. I don't feel that I have a body almost. I'm just like,
I'm with you. And I mean, quantum physics is all about everything being vibration. So, you know,
yeah,
I feel that too when I hear a bass, when I hear a drum, a kind of a shamanic drum. I'm just lost. I'm in another world. It's very transporting. And it's like I become the drum. And yeah, there's something that,
make you want to cry, Emily.
yeah, there's something that moves us, because we're all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went to a sound bath on Sunday. And the last time I've been twice. The first time she did the drum, I've obviously got this dodgy shoulder and arm that doesn't move. First time she did the drum, I felt fire, honestly, all through here. Or it was like my arm was on fire, and I was like, "We'll just leave that and see what happens." But then, afterwards, my arm was really loose, and I could move it a lot better for a good few days. But then this Sunday, she banged the drum, and I just was like, my whole body. Do you know what it just said? My body just said, "This is truth," and I don't know what it meant, but at the time, it was like, "This is." It felt like the only thing, maybe not the only thing that was true, but it felt like I can't explain it. Just grounding, true. And it was just, oh, and there weren't many of us in the class. So she was able to just like go around us all banging. And I was just like, oh, just bang this drum for another 25 minutes. You know what I mean? Just,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, and you return from the church or your sound bath or the dance studio or the club, and you're just like, everything's gonna be okay. I think that's the thing, isn't it? That's what I feel like when I've finished my over 30s club nights. Finish at 8 o'clock in the evening.
I love it. And it's also a reminder that we don't need to go to a club, we don't need to go to an event to feel this, that ancient connection or that connection to our feminine lineage or it's always part of us. It's in our hearts, it's in our DNA, it's part of our makeup. And for me, part of my maturation process as we go on, is about how can I live this in just the everyday, in the normal,
Mm.
in what people describe as the mundane. I mean, I love doing the washing up, I'm not going to lie. And it's like love being in the shower. And those are the moments where I feel inspired and I get these insights. And it's like, cool. It depends what you like. Some people seek and search for it. And I definitely did in the past. But for now, for me, it's the inside, it's the peace. How can I?
We are the universe. If we are the oneness that, we're told in quantum physics that we are, then we've got literally all the answers. And it's like you say, just in that simple act of doing the dishes.
And also, let's do the dishes together because it's more fun.
And put on some
Then
tunes.
put on some tunes and have a boogie like your daughter.
Put
So sweet.
on the tunes. Who does not do the housework without who does housework without actual tunes? Sometimes I do when I need to feel a bit zen. I'm like, wash these glasses and look how clean they're becoming and But if I've got some proper housework to do, like hardcore housework, I have to put on the headphones or the tunes. Much lovelier. Well, everything's a much lovelier experience with music.
Potentially, no judgment either way. Some people need the quiet, need the stillness, and you
Yeah,
know.
that's not their heaven. That isn't their heaven.
We've all got different heavens.
Well, we have, and that's what's beautiful,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Like, my husband, he started walking up Munros and going up Munros,
Mm.
and he's away for hours. And then we'll take a picture, and it'll be this beautiful. I mean, it's vast, it's wide, it's wide,
Mm.
and the cloud inversion down there, and that's how high up he is, and all this stuff. And I'm like, gosh, and he just doesn't want to go with anyone. He just wants to go by himself, or he doesn't have his wife and two daughters yapping, or the dog. So yeah, he wouldn't hate my heaven, but it wouldn't be heaven for him. And I would appreciate all the stuff in the Monroe and love it, but it wouldn't be my heaven.
Yeah. And I love this because this is all part of the togetherness, right? It's the solitude and the community. It's the kind of one person likes this, someone else likes this. We would be willing to compromise and join this person, and it wouldn't be my heaven, but I'd still enjoy it. And for me, this is what healthy environments may become. I love the idea of it, the concept of it, because it's so accepting. It's accepting of ourselves,
Right?
it's accepting of the other. It's like, okay, this may not be my favorite thing, but I love this person, and therefore that's the kind of act of, what's the word? That is love.
It is love. I mean, my mum used to say, she still says, love is acceptance.
Yeah.
And if you can go, oh, you know what? This person is really nice, they're really interesting, they're really kind, but they really love potholing and they've invited me. I can't think of anything worse. I'd be like, I'll come with you and I'll sit outside and I'll meet you afterwards and lovely. But it's that you we need the difference. We need the difference to make everything colourful. And it kind of goes back to what's happening in politics at the moment. We need the difference. Don't you get it? If you are more open, you're not going to lose anything. You're going to just get more good stuff, I think.
Yeah, this is like a whole other conversation, isn't it? It's
People stand by. Emily will be back
part
in a
two.
couple of weeks with part two.
Relational communication.
Well,
But
listen,
yeah, yeah.
look, I'm getting so excited. Look, my glasses are steaming up. I'm going to take them
Steve.
off. So excited by this brand new world that we're actually doing.
We're
I'm going to take off.
building,
We
building
built
as we
it. We
talk.
built
Yeah.
it. But yeah, we should wrap up, and we always wrap up with the little quote from Roger Murtaugh of Lethal Weapon when Mel Gibson came over and was shooting up everybody, and he was like, "I'm too old for this shit," and he couldn't deal with it at all. And so I always ask my lovely guests, "What are you too old for?" What are you willing to give up? What have we had enough of, Emily?
I've had enough of things that aren't real.
Say more about that.
So, keeping it real, you know, the rawness of we're in a process, we're flawed, we've got things to share, we love people.
Ooh,
This
yeah.
feeling of we don't need to hide in the ways that I think we did previously. And there were so many reasons why we did, why we do.
Mhm.
But I feel done with that sense of kind of self erasure or self limiting somehow. Yeah.
So does that mean that you're going to show up, or you want to show up as completely? I know everyone's banding the authentic word around, and I don't want to use it like that, but you're going to show up 100% you, as much as close as you can be to 100%, because all of you deserves to be seen, depending on the environment.
I think that's a beautiful way of describing it. Yeah. And as much as that is possible and available, yeah. I think how more real can we be? How more true can we be to ourselves? You know, for me, that is listening and being in the present moment. That is being true to who we really are. Um, yeah.
Oh, I feel like I've eaten a big, massive ice cream sundae that hasn't given me any calories. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've just had a really lovely, uplifting, and soothing conversation that's been beautiful and delicious without any downside to it. Yeah. Moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. It's just been a moment on the lips, and it's just been that absolute beautiful moment in time, which is what you're talking about just being here in the moment and connecting. And I love
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that with everyone today. And yeah, there will be a part two. I'll send you the questions in advance. Think about it a little bit more. But they never come out. I never plan these. It's just
No.
literally conversations that will create change. And if you've listened to this and you really want to know more about Emily, Emily, what's your email?
So the best way to contact me is through my website. So that's www.emily-phillips.com, and people can contact me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your words and having a word with me today. It's been such fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your wisdom and your joy. It's been so fun. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's been so much fun. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you next month. More words. Bye bye.